Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Our I Can statement is I can explain what the rock cycle is and name the physical properties of an igneous rock. So things to know about rocks before we get started is, like we've talked about before, rocks can be classified as metamorphic, igneous, or sedimentary rocks. They are formed in different ways and have different physical properties. We talked about this when we talked about last week when we talked about the tests that we can do to test rocks. But within that, besides figuring out the specific types of rocks, we can also put them in groups, such as on how they were made, such as metamorphic, igneous, or sedimentary. So a rock can can be any type of rock, an igneous, sedimentary, or metamorphic, based off of what it goes through. So one rock within its guest, you could call it lifetime, could be all three types of rocks. It just depends on what happens to its environment and how it's affected by weathering, compacting, cooling, or melting. So the rock cycle is this process, and it's when the rocks change into new types of rocks. These changes come from weathering, compacting, cooling, and melting. Rocks can change from metamorphic, sedimentary, and igneous rocks. Through this process, a rock can change from one type to another throughout the rock cycle. So here's a better look at that picture. If there is melting, then the sedimentary rock can turn to magma, which can turn into an igneous rock. And then that igneous rock can be weathered and deposited into sediment, so it breaks it down. And then if it's recompacted, that can turn it into a sedimentary rock, or a metamorphic rock can be weathered and turned into sediments, which makes it can make it a sedimentary rock or an igneous rock. If the igneous is remelted, then it can be returned into an igneous rock again. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to be talking about igneous rocks. So igneous rocks are rocks created when magma cools and turns into a rock. So magma is what's in our earth. We talked about this before. It's one of the layers in our earth. So this comes to the surface via volcanoes, but it also happens a lot in between tectonic plates on our earth, underneath the ground, or at the bottom of the ocean. So this is what they look like. This is how we get our granite. We also get this kind of volcanic rock with these air pockets in it. So igneous rocks are formed when magma or molten rock deep within the earth cools and hardens. Sometimes the magma cools within the earth, and other times it erupts onto the surface from volcanoes. In this case, it is called lava. When lava cools very quickly, new crystals form and the rocks look shiny and glass-like. Sometimes gas bubbles are trapped in the rock during the cooling process, leaving tiny holes and spaces in the rock. So to get that kind of granite look that people use for their countertops, that's when it cools really, really quickly and looks kind of shiny and glass-like. So this just shows you that a lot of times igneous rocks are formed within the earth, which is an intrusive igneous rock. But when they are formed from the lava that erupts from a volcano, that is called an extrusive igneous rock. So when they're intrusive, we get rocks like granite. When they're extrusive, we get basalt, pumice, and obsidian. So what are intrusive igneous rocks? So intrusive igneous rocks are intrusive rocks formed below the Earth's surface when the magma intrudes into existing rock layers and cools. So the main point of it is this is happening within the Earth. So it's not above the crust of the Earth, it's inside, and it's the same concept where the magma is cooling. Granite is an example of an intrusive igneous rock. The large mineral crystals of pink feldspar, black mica, and milky quartz make granite an attractive rock often used for building materials and countertops. So this is some examples of what intrusive igneous rocks look like. Then we have extrusive igneous rocks, which is igneous rocks that cool quickly on or above Earth's surface, are known as extrusive igneous rocks. Think of external. Extrusive igneous rocks form on the Earth's exterior. When lava flows out of a volcano onto the surrounding surface, it cools. It is much cooler on the Earth's surface than it is below. When lava cools on Earth, it solidifies very quickly. This does not give mineral crystals very much time to grow, so they might be small. So when we talk about igneous rock, the reason why we get all these really pretty rocks like granite and these pretty crystal looking glass like things is because they're formed within the earth, and because the inside of the earth is so hot, it takes a long time for them to cool. So when things take a long time to cool, that's when the crystals are able to form and grow. We're an extrovert igneous rock because the magma, which we've seen videos of from a volcano erupting, you can see how quickly the magma can cool on the outside of the earth. So because it happens so fast, they don't get those big pretty crystals like what we see in granite. You get something more like this where you get the obsidian or the pumice or the basalt, where it's not as pretty. It often has a lot of air bubbles because it cools so quickly. That's all I have for today. Thanks.